All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're going to try and decode what on earth is happening with the Indian market because honestly, it is a really mixed bag right now. We're talking about everything from some pretty wild predictions on gold to friction in global politics, and we'll even connect it all back to what it means for your own bank account. So here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll look at the big global pressures pushing and pulling on the economy. Then, we'll dive into the conflicting signals the market itself is sending us. After that, we'll zoom in on some specific companies making major moves. And finally, we'll tie it all together and talk about why any of this matters to you. First up, let's talk about those international stories that are creating a big cloud of uncertainty. And we're kicking things off with a prediction about gold and silver that's, well, it's pretty dramatic. Okay, so this quote, it's a real bombshell. It's from Amit Goel, a fund manager who's looking after a whopping 21,000 crore rupees. And he's saying he sees a bubble in gold and silver that's bigger than anything he's seen in more than 2 decades. That's a pretty heavy statement. Now, this is where it gets really interesting, because you've got two completely different takes on this. On one side, you have this forecast of a historic crash, gold down 35%, and silver potentially getting cut in half. But on the other side, there's this huge new player in the game, central banks. Unlike back in 2008 or 2012, countries like India and China are buying up gold like there's no tomorrow. And that buying pressure could easily prevent a massive crash, turning it into a much smaller, maybe 5 to 10% dip instead. All right, so moving on from commodities, there's another big cloud on the horizon. Politics. Specifically, the friction in the super important trade relationship between India and the United States. And you can bet investors are watching this one very, very closely. And look, this isn't just some rumor mill stuff. India's own external affairs minister, S. Jaishankar, has come out and said, yeah, there are issues and that they have not arrived at a landing ground. When your top diplomat says that, it means things are stuck. And that lack of clarity, it creates a really unpredictable environment for any business counting on that trade route. And it's not just about big business deals either. This next one could hit a lot closer to home for many families. There's a potential rule change from the Trump administration that could put a cap on international students. Given that Indian students are the largest group in the US, a rule like this could seriously disrupt the plans for thousands of families and students all across India. Okay, let's switch gears a bit. Because all those international pressures, they're creating a super confusing picture right here in India. Seriously, it's like the market is telling two completely different stories at the exact same time. And this chart, man, it just says it all. You look at a market like Japan's Nikkei, and it has absolutely rocketed up 55% since the lows in April. But India's Nifty, only 13%. That is a massive, massive gap in performance. So the big question is why? Why is India lagging? Well, a few key reasons are being pointed out. We don't have those huge AI-related stocks that are driving other markets. Those US-India trade worries are a big factor. But the main thing is that foreign institutional investors, the big overseas money managers, are pulling their money out. They seem to be worried that the Indian market is just too expensive right now. But here's the crazy part. This is the big puzzle we're trying to solve. While all that foreign money is getting nervous and heading for the exits, our domestic economy seems to be firing on all cylinders. You look at the data from banks, you look at what people are buying, and it paints a much, much sunnier picture. I mean, just look at this number, 93%. That means that an overwhelming majority of these foreign investors are holding net short positions. In simple terms, they are betting that the Indian market is going to go down. That is a huge, almost unheard of level of pessimism from the rest of the world. And this isn't just a one-off thing. It has been a constant flood of money heading for the exit. Look at this timeline. Month after month, tens of thousands of crores being pulled out. That kind of relentless selling pressure is a huge reason why the market is struggling to go up, even with a strong economy at home. All right, so let's zoom in from that 30,000-foot view of the market and look at what's happening with some specific companies. Because we've got boardroom drama, massive tech deals, and stocks rallying because of government policy, the whole shebang. First up, there's a potential storm brewing inside one of India's biggest and most respected names, the Tata Group. There seems to be a power struggle happening within the Tata Trust, which is the core entity that controls the whole operation. There's a big board meeting coming up on October 10th to sort out some governance issues, and you can be sure the entire business world is watching. Now, over in the tech world, wow, this is a game changer. OpenAI, the powerhouse behind ChatGPT, just bought a 10% stake in the chipmaker AMD and signed a multi-billion-dollar deal for their chips. This news sent AMD's stock through the roof and overnight created a serious new competitor for NVIDIA, which has been the undisputed king of AI chips until now. And this next one is a perfect example of how a single government decision can light a fire under a whole sector. After 15 long years, the government has finally updated the payment rates for its health scheme. This is a huge deal. It means hospitals are now getting paid 25 to 30% more for treatments. Just look at the example for a coronary bypass. That's a massive jump in revenue, and it sent hospital stocks soaring. So we've talked global politics, market trends, big corporations, but what does any of this actually mean for you in your day-to-day life? Let's connect the dots. Okay, have you ever been annoyed by that extra cash on delivery fee when you're shopping online? Well, you're not alone, and it looks like the government has had enough too. The Consumer Affairs Minister is now calling this a dark pattern and has basically warned companies like Flipkart to knock it off. This next number is, well, it's just mind-boggling. 84,000 crore rupees. That's how much unclaimed money from old bank accounts, forgotten insurance policies, and mutual funds is just sitting there. This is money that belongs to families who probably have no idea it even exists.
And the good news is you can actually do something about this. The government's made it pretty simple with something called the UDJM portal. You can just Google it, register, and then search for your family members' names. It's a single place to check if there's any of this forgotten money out there that belongs to you. It's definitely worth a few minutes of your time.
We're going to wrap up this section with a really critical warning, and this comes straight from the top, the chairman of SEBI. After hearing all these terrible stories of regular people losing huge amounts of money, he's putting out a reminder. Futures and options trading was designed for hedging risk, not for trying to get rich quick. It's not a lottery ticket, and he's warning that if you jump in without knowing what you're doing, you are going to face big losses.
So this is what it all boils down to, right? You've got this massive tug of war. On one side, you have this huge wall of pessimistic foreign money betting against India. But on the other side, you've got a strong domestic economy and solid companies doing well. So the ultimate question is, which force wins out? Can India's internal strength be enough to defy the odds and push back against all that international doubt? That's the billion-dollar question that's going to define the market for the next few months.